Welcome back to the Ukraine cinematic universe, everyone. I gotta say, the last week has been something. Like much of this war, a whole bunch of stuff has happened, and absolutely nothing's happened. Like I said, it's Schrodinger's war. And it continued to be Schrodinger's war. So there have been a couple changes. We're going to start off with a look at the battlefield, and I actually did show prep this time. So, Kupiansk has, yeah, it's the Russian General Staff has claimed that they took all of Kupiansk. I'm not entirely sure. I did look this up. Some of the places in Ukraine are confusing because, like in Kupiansk, there's like three different uh, towns that are part of one kind of metropolitan area. So I think they took all of Kupiansk proper, but they haven't took the surrounding area. Now, if you guys recall, like a week or two ago, Zelensky said that there was 60 Russians in Kupiansk and they were about to retake it. So I guess that wasn't the case. And yeah, so Kupiansk has either fallen or fully, or there's like 5% left or something, and the Russians are just going to have to clean it out. So there's that one. Kostiantynivka, one of the big remaining things, big remaining cities, definitely looks like it's being enveloped. As someone who can see geometric shapes, this definitely looks like an envelopment that's coming in. That's one of the. I don't know. I mean, if we look at it, there's not really that much between there and the Dnieper. Or I guess no, the Dnieper's over there. What am I talking about? So yeah, so that's not going to be good if that falls. Going back here, we have the Pokrovsk disaster. So Pokrovsk is now, and this is even by the pro-Ukrainian maps, entirely within Russian hands. As I talked about last time, this was a great victory. Pokrovsk is strategically worthless ground. The Russians took immense casualties taking it. There were no troops encircled there. So we have kind of like the mother of all pockets here at Myrnohrad. I mean, this is like a pocket's pocket. This is like the pocket of a pocket fox, if you get the Simpsons reference. I'm not sure how many Ukrainian soldiers are trapped within there. I'd imagine quite a few. I'd imagine some of the soldiers from Pokrovsk fled there because it wasn't occupied yet. But yeah, that's surrounded. That's not going to last very long. And then, yeah, like if you look at it, there's not that many big cities left until we get to the Dnieper. I think this is all just kind of farmland. So yeah, that's not going very well right there. Hulia Pulia is also being enveloped and will soon fall, which is a fun name, but I can't pronounce it because I have issues in that regard. Let me see, was there anything else? We're actually starting to see movement in the south. Russia has started to push in Zaporizhzhia, which has been fairly quiet for quite some time. But yeah, they're going up the M18 highway. They're getting pretty close to Zaporizhzhia city itself. It looks like they're starting to use glide bombs, which means they're reasonably close to it. So I don't know if that's the next goal. The next major target they have is Zaporizhzhia city, but like I said, it's been kind of frozen in the south for quite some time. So, like I said, they're pretty much pushing on every front. I think in Sumy they're starting to make an advance there, but yeah, it's kind of bad all over the line. There's a lot of areas that are here. We have Kivsarivka. That are either that's Kupiansk, that are either encircled or about to be encircled, and it's looking bad. Once again, I mean, if you just look at this, it's like one huge series of encirclements. Now, I don't know if there's necessarily Ukrainians in all of these areas, but you get the idea. The strategic initiative is definitely in Russia's direction, and they're able to pretty much cut off Ukrainian-held cities at will at this point in time. And completely isolate them from reinforcements. So we have that going. Okay, so that's the military situation. Now, to say that this is like a Bond movie is an insult to Bond. This is more like an Austin Powers movie. This whole thing is so complicated, it's hard to even like follow. So, to the surprise of everyone, Ukraine has massive corruption problems. I know nobody saw this coming. So their main energy company, Energy Gotom, there's some big scandal. I don't know the exact details. It doesn't really matter. This is Ukraine, and this is a war in which hundreds of billions of dollars have flown in. They embezzled something like $100 million, which, to be honest, is at the tip of the iceberg. It honestly is not that much money compared to the amount of money that's probably been lost, either from Western companies who have embezzled it or from Ukrainian companies who have embezzled it. But we had this scandal, and so we started to have mass arrests. Now, this was done by NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, which interestingly is one of the two anti-corruption agencies that Zelensky tried to shut down earlier this year. Did he know this was coming? Overwhelmingly, yeah, he probably did know that this was coming. So this scandal broke out. The justice minister was suspended pending. He was the former energy minister who pocketed a lot of this money. He was justice minister in the current cabinet. He fled. He is suspended. The current energy minister was dismissed. The former deputy prime minister has been arrested. Rustem Umarov, secretary of the National Security Defense Council, fled the country. He was under pre-trial investigation, but he decided to flee the country, and I think he's in like Istanbul, hanging out with Erdogan or something. So there's been at least 3 cabinet members who have been directly implicated in this and have been removed in one form or another. I think the other guy is Zelensky's banker. Actually, here, I pulled a list together. Okay, so the people who have been arrested, who have fled the country or have been charged, include people like the former deputy prime minister, nicknamed Che Guevara, the professor, which sounds like a rapper name, the justice minister, the energy minister, the secretary of the National Security Defense Council, Tamir Mindrich, who I think it was Zelensky's banker, or was that Tuskerman? I don't know. There's so many corrupt people involved in this. It's kind of hard to tell even like where it begins. But yeah, one of Zelensky's friends fled the country, and this thing just seems to keep rolling and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's called Operation Midas because in Timur Midich's apartment, he had a toilet seat made out of solid gold. So they're calling it Operation Midas as a result of this. So, like I said, it's the exact details of the money being stolen. The point is that a number of cabinet ministers, high up people, people who are close to Zelensky personally have been implicated in this. Who knows how deep this rabbit hole goes? I would not be surprised if this gets shut down by the EU or Trump or somebody at this point in time. Because, I mean, they're all taking money. They've all embezzled probably hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. Zelensky definitely has taken money in the past. So if they actually start like openly looking into this stuff, it's not going to go very well. And that's kind of part of why this whole thing is a soap opera. Because we have like the big collapse on the battlefield. Russians are advancing everywhere. A bunch of encirclements are happening. Some fronts are some cities have been taken, and we have this scandal. And to be honest, like, why does it even fucking matter? Like, let's be real for a second. The country is being overrun by a foreign adversary. Who cares if people are taking like bribes. I guess the problem is that it's not so much that they're stealing money, it's that they're stealing money in a way that actively harms the war effort. Like we had a lot of, like, I think one of the things that's happened is a lot of money that was supposed to be for fortifications that the Ukrainian army could fall back to was embezzled. So basically, they're supposed to be making new fortress cities. They were supposed to be building Russian style defense lines, and none of that stuff wound up happening because the money was stolen. But at this point in time, I mean, it's kind of the least of their problems. Now, what wound up happening, and part of this, which is interesting, is Zelensky was out of the country right before this whole thing started. So Zelensky, I think, was in Spain when this whole thing broke. So he went to Greece to beg Greece to give him all of the remaining Patriot missiles, because Greece maintains a large air defense, a disproportionately large air defense system, because they have to defend themselves in case Turkey ever decides to start something. So he was trying to convince them to give them all of their air defense missiles. He also ordered 100 jet fighters from France that are going to be delivered in 2 years. I don't think that's going to happen, and even if they were, who's going to fly them? And then he went to Spain for some reason. I've heard it suggested that there's a lot of money laundering in Spain. Maybe he was checking up on his investments there. But he was out of the country when this whole thing broke and just kept moving from country to country. I think he went to Istanbul and then pretended that he was going to start negotiations again. The point of the matter is, this always seems to happen with Zelensky. Whenever there's a military or political crisis, he leaves the country, or it conveniently happens like the day after he leaves the country, and he goes and it does glad handing and stuff like that. So Zelensky also, I guess you could say, fled the country. I'm not sure if he's back now or yet. Now, the other insane thing about this whole thing is the other reason he was in Greece was the liquid natural gas deal. So this is the level of just absurdity that we've reached. So Ukraine no longer has access to natural gas. So what was happening is Russia paid Ukraine to pump natural gas across Ukraine to Eastern Europe. So Hungary, Slovakia, and I think a couple other countries were getting most of their natural gas through a pipeline that runs under Ukraine. And Russia was paying them royalties for the pipeline, even as they were blowing the country up. So what wound up happening is Hungary or Slovakia would then sell the natural gas to Ukraine, and Ukraine would get their natural gas indirectly from Russia. It's all very cloak and dagger. It's all very fake. But Ukraine was able to take advantage of cheap Russian gas while being at war with Russia. So Zelensky decided to cut off the pipeline at the beginning of this year. Part of the reason why, if you've seen all the cases where the Russians did the underground pipeline assaults, that's because they cut the pipelines off, and now there's not gas in them anymore. So they can't sell it back to him. So the genius plan they came up with is Ukraine is going to buy natural gas from the United States. Ukraine is going to start using liquefied natural gas shipped in from the United States. Now, I'm not sure exactly how much more expensive it is. I think it's something like 2 to 4 times more expensive is when I did a basic search on it. I can't imagine that it's not more expensive than that, to be honest. But yeah, like the biggest country that's fully in Europe, Ukraine, with a sizable population and cold winters, is going to have to import all of its natural gas from America across the ocean. Like it doesn't make any sense. and it's going to be a disaster. I mean, that assumes that there's even really an energy system to pump the gas into, which at this point there really isn't. The Russians have been hammering it pretty consistently. In my understanding, in some cities they've had to delay turning on the heating, or they've had shortages. And I mean, I'm sure it's cold there. Let's see here. At the moment in Kiev, it's 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, so it's cold, but not super cold. It's about the same, maybe a little bit warmer than it is here in on the prairies. So they're importing the liquid natural gas. They're going to import the fighters. You got the guy with the gold toilet seat. Stuff is going bad on the front lines. It's just kind of a mess. It's an incoherent, yet somehow mundane and boring, yet confusing. It's like a procedure. It's like you're watching a procedural thriller, or no, like a courtroom procedural show, but the plot is completely incoherent. I guess is kind of what it is, explained by somebody who's not really explaining it very well. Okay, so we have part 3 of this. Days of Our Trump. The peace plan soap opera continues. So this whole thing is, frankly, extremely fake and gay, if I can use the G slur. Let me try to even explain like what the fuck was going on with this, because so we've been going back and forth with what happened with Alaska. So the previous narrative was that Putin had accepted a really bad deal that Trump had offered through Witkoff, and then Trump went back on it after he talked to his European allies. And at the time, I saw this basically as Russia's capitulation, because it was extremely bad for Russia. So Lavrov has come out and he has been doing interviews where he's been explaining all of this and going through the timeline. But something interesting has happened. There's been a leak of a 28-point U.S.-Russia peace plan that they've apparently been working on behind the scenes with like Witkoff and Kirill Dmitriev and just a bunch of other people doing all this kind of cloak and dagger stuff. And they came up with this 28-point peace plan that appears to be co-developed. Now, is this real? I don't know. Lavrov seems to think it's real, or I forget if Lavrov has commented on this specifically, but the details he's revealed seem to indicate that it's real. So it depends who you want to believe and who you trust. I tend to believe Lavrov. Anyways, so basically what happened, and this is as far as I can determine the timeline. So Witkoff went to Moscow and he offered Trump's proposal to Putin. Now, my understanding at the time was that proposal was basically a freeze, but America would recognize Donetsk and Luhansk as well as Crimea as part of Russia. But there would be like no limitations on Ukraine. There would be no hard ban on Ukraine entering NATO. There wouldn't be a lot of different things. So it looked like it was a really bad deal and that it was a complete and total capitulation by Russia at a point in time when they were starting to really win the war. So now the new claim is that this 28-point proposal, I'm not going to go through it all again. There's a term called that I think the Duran invented called Istanbul Plus, which is Putin took the Istanbul Agreement, which was agreed to at the start of the war before Boris Johnson came in and destroyed it. But Putin made a speech to the Russian Foreign Ministry in June of 2024 where he basically laid out Russia's demands. So the demands were Istanbul plus some extra things regarding the situation on the ground in the new annexed territories. Now, what Trump proposed was the Istanbul Plus, but apparently there was a couple extra things to it. The restrictions it would put on the Ukrainian army were, I think, harsher than what Russia originally asked for. The country was going to become bilingual as best as I can determine. It was going to become a co-equal language to Ukrainian. All the other stuff that Putin asked for, the 4 regions, Ukraine passing legislation that it will never enter NATO, a guarantee from, a formal guarantee from NATO that they will never accept Ukraine's membership. Just go through everything. The things that differ from the original Istanbul Plus is Putin agreed to freeze the front line momentarily, briefly along where they are in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. However, Ukraine would immediately have to vacate the remainder of Donbass. So America was going to recognize Donetsk and Luhansk as well as Crimea as part of Russia. They were not going to recognize Zaporizhzhia and Kherson as part of Russia, though. Ukraine was going to have to gradually withdraw from the remainder of those 2 regions. Ukraine was not going to have to... I think what they came up with was Ukraine is not going to recognize that it's lost the territories, but the U.S. will recognize that Russia legally controls the territories or something like that. So basically it was Istanbul Plus with a couple extra things added on to it. The Russian language thing is very interesting, and that probably would have made Ukraine kind of drift back into Russia's sphere of influence. So that's something interesting to talk about. So this was leaked. Now Keith Kellogg, Snap Crackle Pop, Trump's peace envoy to Ukraine, or whatever his name is, has announced that he's going to resign at the end of his term. He's not going to accept a renewal. He's going to be gone when his term runs out. I forget if it's in January or whenever. So he was the leader of the neocon light faction, the people with Rubio and I think a majority of the Trump administration who are basically neocon light, and they wanted to continue the war against Russia. I say they're neocon light because they wanted to freeze the conflict. They didn't want to fully enter into it directly, which is probably what the neocons would ask for. They also the neocons wanted more direct armaments to Ukraine, and Trump does not want to do that. But anyways, he resigned. Or said he's not going to seek renewal. I think it was the same day or within 1 day of this big peace proposal leaking. So it's pretty obvious that Kellogg was probably the one who leaked it, or someone at his behest, as a way to kind of try to derail the whole process, and as kind of a fuck you on the way out. So Kellogg's gone. That probably leaves Rubio, I guess, as the leader of the neocon light faction. Whether or not this will help out the pseudo-realist faction, which this plan came out of, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so we had I can't even think, to be honest, the whole thing is so gay. But Trump took a hardline position. Then Alaska happened, and he took a compromising position. And then he met the Europeans, and he took a hardline position again. Now apparently he's back to a compromise position. I don't know. This thing goes back so far back and forth, it's hard to even talk. So I guess the kind of the ultimate answer to this is there is a 28-point peace plan that was leaked. Whether that represented a early version or close to the final version, I'm not sure, which amounted to Istanbul Plus with a couple extra things tacked on. And that has been thrust into the mainstream. So it's probably not going to pass. I don't know. How would they even do this? All America can really do is just sign the agreement with Russia, stop supporting Ukraine, and just say look, Russia, you can enforce the terms of this. We don't care. I guess America can make NATO promise to never let Ukraine join. Oh, right. Part of the agreement was also the end of NATO expansion. So I think it was like Moldova, Georgia, and Armenia would never be allowed to join NATO. Was part of what the agreement they came up with was. So this is leaked. So this is probably going to derail it again. Expect Trump to turn back to a hardline position. Expect there to be more bloodletting in the administration as people stab each other and people blame each other. Who knows who's going to replace Kellogg? But like I said, it's days of our Trump. It's the peace plan soap opera. Are we anywhere closer to peace? No. So let's see, what have we learned this week? After half an hour of me just kind of rambling, trying to explain the unexplainable. The fighting's going really bad in the field. Ukraine's suffering from a lot of troops being encircled and destroyed or captured. The Ukrainian government is going through a crisis. The opposition's demanding a national unity government being formed, which probably isn't going to happen. There's schisms within Zelensky's own party. People are fleeing the country. It's rough. And the Trump administration still has no idea what they're doing. So I guess in summary, the week began with total chaos and ended with even more chaos. I guess that's just about all I can say. Anyways, guys, I'm sorry if that was incoherent. I did try. I did spend like an hour today trying to figure this stuff out. But there's so much back and forth. It's really hard to even know like what's going on. I'll try to do a more coherent update once the dust settles on this thing and we have a better idea of what's happening. Anyways, guys, God bless and more content to come.